Hello everybody, welcome back to my video blog. Welcome back after this summer. I hope most of you had their vacation and enjoyed it and are relaxed now. I personally had a short vacation. Now I'm back in the office and kind of excited to the challenges for the rest of this year. I had the chance in the past weeks to meet my new colleague Mark Woolley, who is based in the Netherlands, and we couldn't meet before because of the travel limitations. And Mark Woolley is our technical sales manager and consultant. He is a digitization expert with a long history in the oil and gas industry, and we talked about why he joined Softec, first of all, which I find pretty interesting to hear from somebody who is new to Softec with this background, but also about what is the future of the oil and gas industry and the energy industry in general, given the Green Deal initiative from the European Union and the challenges with the climate change that we have and the rebuilding of the economy. And I found it pretty interesting to talk to an insider of this industry about these topics and some other stuff. But listen yourself. Yeah, hey Mark, it's really nice finally seeing you in person, taking a beer with you here in the English Garden.
So, yeah, very nice, man.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so tell me, Mark, I was always wondering, what does actually technical sales mean and how did you get into it?
Yeah, well really, Ben, technical sales is sort of the interlock between sort of the sales of a sort of vendor organization normally and then the technology side for bringing that to a client or to a customer. And so helping interpret a technical need, normally above and beyond what maybe your sales guys want. So I'm sort of less focused on the commission and the money, but more on making sure that what the customer wants they get from a technical perspective. Mm-hmm. And how I got into it was, a little bit of a journey, but it's something I've always sort of had a feel for the technical world. I studied earth sciences at university, and then I went and worked in the oil industry for many a year across the globe, sort of remote working, obviously subcontracted to oil companies, where you had the technical side of setting up installations to do rig readings, equipment, sensor information, and then interpret that from a geological perspective and pass it back to the client. And then I just fell then from in there into IT consultancy. So really worked for a company called Hitachi Data Systems, which is now Hitachi Vantara. And they were really focused on content management, file services, content platform, object storage, that sort of thing. And there I was going to IT consulting, got into pre-sales, which was really focused on, again, that sort of technical aspect for the client, making sure that what they want to achieve from a business goal was possible technically. And then I ended up at Accenture eventually, one of the big consultancy firms. And I was the global digital upstream lead, responsible for asset development. So again, that was looking at solutions, developing solutions with an ecosystem of partners for a client. Mm-hmm. So the sort of technical sales sort of aspect of it is really focused on being able to deliver a business use case that provides value, but then really give the technical side of the answer to the customer. And so that's where I found myself working in that arena for oil and gas. Also a little bit into plant, so predictive maintenance, that sort of thing. And a position came up at Softec for technical sales lead in the Eastern Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And how did you learn about Softec? What was the first time you heard about it, and how did you understand, who is Softec actually for you?
Yeah, well, to be honest, the first time I ever heard of Softec, I was introduced by a friend, an ex-colleague, who took a position up at Softec and said, it could be something of interest to you, Mark. It's technical, it's across industry, because I was really focused obviously on oil and gas, but in my past I'd done bits in finance, I'd done bits in healthcare, and I really wanted to spread my wings across multiple industries. And then I took a look at the Softtech website, saw the host of industries they cover, so everything from automotive, industrial automation, oil and gas obviously, which helps me, healthcare, consumable electronics, and then you look at the technology side, and they do everything from firmware, hardware development, right through to the end user side. So the UI, the UX, the applications that are taking data and utilising that data they gather in the IoT frame and make it useful for clients in their sort of business process. So that was really sort of the thing that really drove me was, I think, the depth and breadth of the industries they covered, but also the use cases, very specific ones from taking brownfield IoT equipment for an oil and gas service company and then adapting the firmware so that could transfer data quicker so it could be used in an IoT hub. So things like that, the thought around there, and then down to dog collars, and to drones and camera vision for electric cars. So really fascinating stuff, and that's what drew me to sort of saying yes, and then obviously meeting the leadership team and really connecting with where they were going, the strategy on the company. Then it wasn't really a difficult decision to make.
Okay. Yeah, at the end of the day, Softtech is an outsourcing business. And many people ask, okay, what's the difference between some ordinary outsourcing company that does software development, maybe from India or so, and Softtech? How did you do you see the difference from you being new to Softtech and also having a broad view on the industry?
Softtech is not really a body shop company. It's not about just delivering FTEs to fill a Java role or an SAP role. They can do it and they provide it in the context of a project. So while obviously there's a market for your typical outsourcing companies that provide people en masse for projects, sort of cheap labour, Softtech gives a totally different dimension. So generally, it's very bespoke, complex, innovative projects using latest tech to deliver a very specific business outcome with obviously value for the client. And so there's not a armory of or portfolio of products from Softtech. It's one-offs, but the skills behind that are obviously reusable because of our delivery centre in Minsk. And so the key thing I think is Softtech can deliver really innovative projects and has the ability to staff projects, whether that be embedded firmware developers, hardware developers, schematic engineers, PCB designers, AI or machine learning guys, data scientists, UI, UX guys. They've got the whole gambit in terms of that end-to-end stack, which is really what you need if you're looking at solutioning, especially on an IoT platform where you want to take data, do something with it. You need to integrate that data, then you want to use it into something, into a workflow, then you want to make a decision of it. So it's very much about providing that for their clients, which for me is, again, another reason why I was really eager to join.
Yeah, well, it's cool. It's always interesting to hear from people that see Softtech, let's say, from the first time, what view they have on the company and what they think about the company. So it's really interesting. There's another topic I would like to talk to you about. I think we have a common passion we share for the energy sector. I'm really interested in kind of the green energy, the renewable energies. I know a lot about solar energy. I have an electric car, wind energy. I read a lot about the problems with moving over from the, let's say, carbon-driven energy to the renewable energies, the storage, how you transport the energy from A to B. And I'm really excited about the Green Deal initiative from the European Union to convert the economy to a, let's say, carbon-free economy. I really think this is a great opportunity for Europe. And your background is oil and gas, which isn't that kind of the opposite, or how do you see that? Let's say the change in the industry and
well, I guess
what is the future of oil and gas? Maybe also.
Well, no, it's a fair one. But yeah, I mean, oil and gas gets a bit of a bad press of late, just for a variety of reasons. But I think if you look at the landscape for oil and gas now, there's no real differentiator with renewables. You see a lot of oil and gas companies re-identifying as energy companies.
I've heard that.
Yeah, so there, because obviously there's environmental pressure. There's carbon tax. There's pressure from the public around the use of oil and gas, the internal combustion engine. There's that sort of thing. Then there's obviously the technology aspect of this. So renewables are generally newer companies, startups are a bit more agile and more adaptive. They're quicker to market. Oil and gas are a little bit slower in terms of transforming from digital, because I think that's one of the mistakes people always say, and maybe that's why most oil and gas companies don't like this term of being told they're not innovative, because oil and gas companies are innovative before many other companies. Is stuff that dynamic positioning you use on yachts, that was invented for the oil industry, keeping rigs in position.
Yeah.
Directional drilling, where you go in horizontal as a well of 1600 meters. Multi-phase flow pipeline, so you can put oil, gas and water in one pipeline and divide them using multi-phase flow. That's now used in cancer sort of research for malignant tumours, stuff like that. So the innovative side of the oil and gas has always been there. It's just this digital transformation, how to crack that nut there. And that's where you see, from an energy perspective, oil and gas companies embarking on these journeys for transforming digitally, within their core business, which is producing oil, producing gas, finding oil, finding gas.
Yeah.
And they take that and then they try and refine the workflows, become more efficient. So instead of drilling 4 wells, they can drill 1. Instead of abandoning fields, can they get more out of it by using artificial lift, but using artificial intelligence to improve that artificial lift. So there's a digital transformation, how they're using AI and machine learning in their core piece, but there's also the other aspect of the business that you see now, like BP, Shell, Total, all with these net zero emission targets, and you also see them changing their strategy in terms of buying into power grids, buying into renewables, buying into battery companies that store power. Saudi Aramco have bought into a startup, I think it's Daphne, who use nanotechnology to clean the emissions from their tankers, that transport stuff, and then transform that into fertilizer the crops. So then you've got this cycle economy, the cyclic economy that then is doing that. So the oil companies know they have to change, and they are changing. There's massive investment in that renewables piece, and different ones, because everyone looks at oil and gas and says it's the end of oil and gas. People be 2030 or 2040 or 2050 will be peak demand, maybe for oil, but then LNG still has a place, replacing coal. But what's the answer? If you look at how oil and gas companies are investing in renewables, then they're not all even investing in wind. There's some are in wind, some in hydro, some are in biofuels. So there's a whole scope. And if you look at the breakdown of those different, energy makeup of the new companies, they're not all betting on electric or wind, or there's a whole mix in there, because no one really knows. Is electric car the future? You look at Holland at the moment, and they're really transforming their oil and gas into geothermal, but also hydrogen. So hydrogen is becoming a big thing for orders. So this whole idea that oil and gas companies are dying, they're just going to transform into energy companies, and they have the capital to do that, they have the expertise. A lot of it's transferable. Geothermal wells, what's an oil well? It's a hole in the ground, a geothermal, at its base level. So I think it's still, oil and gas isn't dead. They just have to be more refined, because, forgive the pun, but they have to be more refined in their business process, the way they deliver to their shareholders, because obviously their margins are smaller. When the price of oil was $100 a barrel, easy to make money. Now it's 70, 30, 40. It was down at 12 and less during Corona. So they've really had to adapt and change, and that's what they're doing. So they're doing it on 2 levels: digital transformation for the core business, but also by investing in startups within that digital transformation, so people who can improve their artificial lift. Or like I worked for a company previously, it's a startup called Mana, backed by Shell Ventures, Chevron Ventures, Saudi Aramco Ventures, and that was about computational knowledge graphs to drive AI into the business process and decision making across everything from geophysical exploration right through to shipping, to trading, to production enhancement. So yeah, there's a big sort of movement by oil and gas companies to become energy companies and also to become more attractive, because that's one of the other issues, of course, is oil and gas companies now are generally finding it hard to recruit, because obviously the sort of university leavers, those sort of people who are a bit more concerned about the environment, they have a lot more knowledge at their fingertips, they know what the other options are. So this is where you see this transition to like data science, AI, machine learning. How can you help us perform better? How can you help us drill less well? You know, that sort of aspect of it. So it's very interesting, I think, time for the oil and gas.
So the traditional oil and gas companies are basically transforming to more of an energy company that has also renewables in their portfolio, and maybe over some time they will convert to kind of the green, not oil and gas, but green kind of energy companies, right?
Yeah, I think there'll be a change in the proportions. You know, at the moment, oil and gas is still, required. The energy demand's still going up. You know, just turning over coal power stations to LNG shows that.
Yeah.
I mean, Aramco has 75 years worth of oil and still in its ground, so it's still there. I mean, but if you can lift it for cheaper, then obviously it becomes more attractive for the market. So, yeah, it's interesting times.
And the way how they transform, this is basically through acquiring startups or building some startups with the ventures they build, right?
Yeah.
That's the way how they do it, right?
Yeah. There's a sort of I think a different way. So if you look at someone like OMV based in Vienna, Austrian company, they have a fantastic digital transformation program driven from the top down by the C-level, and that's focused on transforming their different business units from exploration, from operations, right through to refining and the downstream stuff. And that's focused on bringing in the best technology with an ecosystem partners like Microsoft and system integrators, and then oilfield service vendors. And then you've got people like Aker BP in Norway, who's basically a new company. So their whole aspect of this is driven from wanting to be a digital company from the start. So they have no boundaries. They've got no organizational boundaries. They've got a digital operating model that allows them to be more flexible in their choice of technology. So you've got companies who transform like that. They do it internally and they'll buy in. So Aker BP use Cognite, which is a data liberation company, they call themselves, and it's part of Aker BP and Aker Solutions. And that then allows them to basically build what they want on top using their own resources. Then you've got the other aspect where companies will outsource to your likes of Accenture or Deloitte and bring in people to transform. And Petrofac have done a great project with Accenture around reimagining their operations through predictive analytics. And then you've got other companies who will look at investing in startups, because they'll get a bit of the money from the startup if it goes right, but they also benefit if it gets injected into the production side.
Yeah. I know some startups in Germany, but more in the automotive maybe environment, transportation, also in the battery environment. I know some startups, but I never heard about this kind of energy startups companies. Maybe back into the solar energy, there were some startups, of course, that were quite successul.
Yeah,
Do you know some startups that, or can you bring some stories about that, or where are these startups basically?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons I joined Softech as well, was the work they're doing with electrical startups and the electrical car. So that's fantastic, the computer vision, that sort of stuff. But in terms of oil and gas, the startup hubs, you've got Norway where their main income comes from oil. And the Norwegian government are very switched on to what's going on. They understand. Equinor is very switched on. They've got really strong oil and gas companies. And then they start wanting to say, okay, how can we reinvent Norway so that we're not reliant so much on oil and gas? So the whole startup place in Norway is very big. So oil and gas related, but then it trims out, as you say, into renewables, into batteries, into all sorts of different things. So you get that energy going there in Norway. And if you look in the UK, the same's happening there. The Oil and Gas Technology Centre, part of the Oil and Gas Authority, is really driving digital transformation, awareness of what technologies are available. And then you just got to look in Houston. There's innovation hubs everywhere. From especially like Microsoft, Accenture, and then Chevron's own, Exxon own. They all have their innovation hubs where they're showing what they've done. And oil and gas is not just drilling in the ground. Obviously, you've got fuels retail. You've got the garage forecourts where how you use technology to attract customers to your garage, how you transform, how you refine, how you do all the predictive maintenance and asset maintenance on those things. So there's a whole host of stuff in that area for oil and gas as well.
Okay, cool, pretty impressive. I'm really glad to have you on board, Mark.
Yeah,
so, cheers.
Glad to be here, man. Cheers.
Yeah, cool, Mark. We talked a lot about the energy sector now, which is quite an interesting topic. But Softec is in many other domains active, right? In the automotive domain, in the healthcare, industrial automation, consumer electronics. So, what common challenges do you see in the industry?
To be honest, it's one of the other reasons I joined. Obviously, Softec was really, if you look at the oil and gas sort of industry in terms of its success at digital transformation, they have pockets of it, but a lot of, should we say, wasted money on pilots, tests of technology, and there's a lot that can be learned from different industries. And when you look at what Softec has done in sort of healthcare and consumer electronics and camera vision for drones, that sort of thing is things that we can take as a use case. Okay, the business case might be different, but then you can use that for an oil and gas company and really help potentially transform there. But one of the biggest sort of, I guess, commonalities is the fact that people have digitalization programs. They have a strategy. They have a digital office in most industries. Some industries are very I think, easier to evolve and transform because they're not as complex. An oil and gas company does everything from getting out to the ground to selling it at the pump. But what other companies are very good at is defining a business use case and getting return on investments and seeing that value. And that's something I think where generally oil companies as a whole suffer. Their sort of hit ratio in terms of pilots and proofs of technologies to actual production versions is very limited. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the use of the technology, computer vision in my HoloLens or my smart glasses. How useful is that on a rig site? How useful it is in a refinery in specific areas where you've got explosion zones, things like that. So it's about intrinsically safe devices and technology and the use of that technology in a business. So I think the principles of how they approach it are very different. Concentrating, if you look at like the finance industry, for example, or you look at to a degree automotive and even chemicals, it's the way they focus on the operating model, how that filters down from sea level into the company and drives a change in attitude. You change that attitude and then you obviously get a change in adoption. So adoption is obviously very important as well. I wouldn't say oil and gas are far behind. It's just, it's not easy to sort of whitewash every industry on top of each other in terms of digital transformation because oil and gas has very specific issues. But I think it's that starting block, defining, becoming better at delivering use cases. And I mentioned before about OMVOW and Aker BP. They're doing that. That's what they're doing. And Wintershall Dea are doing the same thing. And Shell to a degree in its venture. So it's getting there. It's just taking a longer time than I think most oil and gas companies would want it to do. The general public probably as well. But then also there's a lot of other sort of outside problems with oil and gas, geopolitical issues, oil price, corona, all hitting at the same time. So that also affects it.
Yeah, cool. What I also see a lot is that companies are looking more for all-in-one kind of service. So they come to me, or people reach out to me with a high-level business issue, and they want me to solve the problem, to provide the solution. So I see it's transforming, where it's kind of merging from pure IT development to IT development plus IT consulting. What is your view on that?
Yeah, I think that's the crux of the first question was like why technical sales. I mean, it's really in that. It's the IT business, it's IT development, and it's IT consultancy.
Yeah.
So it's really about defining a problem, understanding that problem, getting the business involved, so that then you have a business case, getting IT involved, so then you've got IT on point with maybe understanding technology requirements, maybe they have something already. So then you've got the business side, you've got IT, and then obviously the consulting side of that is bringing these together with a sort of a common goal to transform a use case. So from my experience, I've worked in oil and gas, I've worked in the technology sector, consulted in IoT projects, AI, machine learning, data science ones in terms of delivering solutions, end-to-end solutions for clients in my Accenture days, which required an ecosystem of partners. You know, you've got technology partners like Microsoft and AWS, then you've got integration partners, you've got AI partners, BI partners, partners who can deliver analytics for data science, and then UI and UX. And so bringing that all together requires a bit of work from a consulting side. And you have companies like Accenture who can do the whole thing. You have companies like Softec who can do the whole thing. Obviously there's a big difference in size. Accenture's like 550,000, Softec's sort of 315 growing, but the quality and the ability to go in at the hardware level, and Accenture can't do that, KPMG can't do that, and IBM can't do that in the same way that Softec can deliver in that agile way, and that's for me a really important part of it. And then obviously as Softec grows, as the client base gets bigger and customers are more confident in the delivery that Softec provides, then you see a real transition into the sort of advisory space. So consulting has a sort of a bad sort of image in terms of, you know, day rates and charges and things like that. But becoming a customer advisor, advising the customer, is a key sort of factor in this customer intimacy thing. So it's about delivering value for customers. So a lot of things I used to do at Accenture as well was around the digital ideation workshops. So sitting down with a client, they have 10 potential use cases where they'd like to test a data science, or an AI technology, an IoT technology, and then you look at the business use case, you define the value to that, what's the team that's needed from the client, but also from, say, Softec. So you need a development team, you need a management team, you need a QA team, and you need the people to deliver the technical side of that. So that bit is very important, and driving a relationship with a client that's just not a one-off pilot or proof of technology that takes them on that journey of evolving from testing the technology, improving it, to integrating it into a workflow and driving value for a client is really where I think the value is, and I think that's what clients and customers expect, and I think that's fundamentally why, it's one of Softec's defining strategic pillars is the customer intimacy based on that.
Yeah, agree. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. We are really excited to have Mark on board, and I hope some of you will meet him quite soon. If you're interested in the Green Deal or in this energy topic, please check out our blog on our website, softec.com. There are some articles about energy. A recent one that I found personally really interesting is about what the Green Deal means to Europe. Okay, in my next video blog, I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence. So make sure you don't miss that one. Bye. Tschüss. Servus. Paka.